All right, so we just had an opportunity to watch UFC 254, and man, I wasn't expecting this.
No. I mean, the talk was the same going into this fight. The whole time it was almost like, what's next? Was
30 and 0.
yeah, what's going to be the 30th? What's going to be the
Yep.
finale to this whole thing?
Man, and the entire time here we are. We talked about on one of the previous episodes, Khabib's legacy, right?
Yeah.
What's left for Khabib's legacy? And we were talking about, Conor McGregor, Tony Ferguson, all these different names of fighters that would help cement Khabib's legacy. And, wasn't expecting him to retire. Little heartbroken right now. It's one of those things where you see an athlete, which you believe is a generational athlete. Like in our generation, I don't believe we're going to see another Khabib Nurmagomedov. And it saddens me to see it end right now. But when I think about his legacy, to me, personally, maybe it's because we just witnessed this right now, maybe because I'm still emotional from it. But for me, this cemented his legacy just as much because we see, that he told his mom this was going to be the last fight without his dad, and he stuck to his word. And, I mean, granted, Khabib's already made a decent amount of money doing what he does, but the fact that he knows he can make millions more later on down the road, and that doesn't matter to him as much as keeping the word that he gave his mother. And, man, it's just what a way for him to go out.
Yeah, and I mean, there's different ways. There's a bunch of different ways that you can cement your legacy and add to your legacy, right? There's the Anderson Silva style of completely clearing out your vision. There's the DC style of jumping up and getting the heavyweight belt. There's different ways you can do that, but then also just retiring while you're on top. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's ever really truly done it. Like GSP, people say GSP did it, but arguably he lost that Hendricks fight, right? So it's a tough call. There's also blemishes on GSP's career that also adds to his legacy, like the fight with Matt Serra and the fight with Matt Hughes, where he takes a loss, but then comes back and steamrolls him in the rematches, and that adds to the legacy too, right? Because he can avenge his losses in a dramatic fashion. But with Khabib, it's perfect.
It's dominant.
Perfect. He lost one round at least his whole UFC career. I haven't seen all 29 of his fights, I'll be honest, but he's lost one round to Conor in a round where Conor was cheating throughout the whole round. So, he's perfect. It's perfect. So to see him retire like this, and I was telling my buddy Ruben was like, damn, dude, seeing him cry like that was tough. That must have been hard for him. And he's so stoic all the time that when I think we've had two bursts of emotion from Khabib in his entire career, and one is after the Conor fight, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then one is this, and everybody was questioning, and he got tired of answering the questions of what's your mentality like going into this fight without your father, all this stuff, right? How much of it's weighing on you? Or is it going to be a different Khabib? Like all this stuff. He looked fucking like a man on a mission in this fight. And then as soon as it's over, instantly it all just pours out of him. So to see someone who's so reserved and disciplined and directed and focused to just shut down and let it all out like that was just fucking hard, dude. That sucks. I mean, it doesn't suck. It's heavy,
Yeah, it's heavy, and we get reminded that these superstar athletes, these tough UFC fighters are people too, right? That they have all the same emotions that us regular folk do as well. But to see it on this stage, and it's genuine, and it was really, really impactful.
Yeah.
So I wish Khabib nothing but the best, man. And man, when DC, you hear DC choking up, and
it's like I didn't know it was going to be over like that. I thought we had one more. I didn't know this was over yet. It's like, man.
Yeah.
Man.
So he pulled the rug out from underneath DC as well.
Yeah.
Nobody was expecting this.
Yeah.
I don't know if Dana was expecting this, but Will, as soon as he finished the fight and there was a sense of urgency to get those gloves off,
I know. Yeah.
I had a feeling.
Same.
I had a feeling that he was trying to take the gloves off for a specific reason.
You could see it in John Anik's face. You could see him in the background waiting to do the interview, and you could see in his face the looking around at everybody in Khabib's corner, and just him kind of get. You can tell that's what was going through his mind too. He's like, "Oh shit, is this about to be?" I mean, man, what a fucking way to go out too with that fight. It's just, man.
Hey, props to Gaethje too.
Gaethje landed the hardest shots Khabib's ever taken.
Left hook?
Yeah, granted,
Ooh.
Khabib won the first round, but it was the hardest round in Khabib's career, in my opinion. I mean, he had to deal with some adversity in that, and for him to get the triangle like that in the second round, I was telling Ruben, it's like it was the hardest and most he's ever been hit in a round, and I think it seemed like it at least. It was in my opinion, the toughest fight Khabib has had so far. And he finished him in the second round. What does that tell you about this guy's career? The hardest fight for him was one where he finished it in the second round.
And it was such a beautiful transition too.
Yeah, it was so smooth.
And the way he set it up, he knows it's almost the end of the first round, and he threatens with an armbar.
Yeah.
And then the second round, he threatens with the armbar, knowing that Gaethje was probably expecting him to do the same thing and just transition into the triangles so seamlessly.
Yeah.
And your boy Herzog missed a couple taps there.
I know.
But it's okay.
That's the first blemish on his record. Listen, it's better than missing taps on an armbar or a Kimura or something like that. If you're going to miss taps, do it on a choke where you're not going to break an arm.
Even Gaethje said.
Yeah.
Even Gaethje said, he's like, man, being put to sleep is not as bad for you long term.
Yeah.
So
if you're going to get finished,
he's ready to come back and fight.
Yeah, probably the best way to get finished.
So now we see Conor versus Poirier.
Yeah.
Winner of that gets Gaethje?
No, well, probably, but
no.
But I will.
Or maybe they change it to an interim.
I will bet you. I'll bet you $50. I don't have a ton of money. I'll bet you $50 that they're about to announce Conor versus Dustin's fight for the vacant belt. Guarantee that's what they're gonna do. Gaethje will probably fight the winner of that fight, but I 100%. Dustin versus Conor is going to be for the belt because they want Conor to be the champ so bad, so bad. But and now we see a dominant champ in the division. The division was already stacked, but this division's about to go through turmoil. We have Tony, Gaethje, Conor, Dustin, and now Michael Chandler, who, if they all fought each other 10 times, it'd be different every time. All of those guys can beat each other. It's about to get so crazy in this division. I cannot wait. Chandler
off in the side right now, just licking his chops, man.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
I don't have to fight Khabib.
And that is genius too. That's genius too from the UFC. If you think about how long they've waited to actually bring him in.
Yeah.
Habib's on his way out here pretty soon. Now it's a perfect time to sign Chandler.
Perfect.
So just all around these moves, but. Man, again, as soon as it was over, I texted you and I was like, man, we got to record.
Yeah.
Because, again, I think this is going to be a time that we remember, in the sport of mixed martial arts for a very long time.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say because, it's an easy decision, I think, but it's hard for me to get it out because BJ Penn has always been, the greatest lightweight of all time for me. But, how can you even argue with this? Obviously, this is reactionary, right? It literally just happened 10 minutes ago. But, how do you not say Khabib is the best lightweight of all time?
It's hard to argue that.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's hard.
29-0, dude.
Again.
And you look at the resume.
13-0 in the UFC.
Yeah.
13-0 in the UFC. And each fight dominant. I think the hardest time he had was probably against Ally Quinta.
I don't even think so.
I don't even think that might have been. Well, I think that in our eyes, or at least in my eyes, it seemed like it was hard because I expected him to go in there and just steamroll Ally Quinta on a short notice.
Yeah.
And Ally Quinta put up a good fight, so it might have been the circumstance itself.
For me, for me, it was he was scheduled to fight Tony that fight, correct? That was a Tony. Yeah. So, in my opinion,
that's most of Khabib's fight. When you go back and look at it, you could say he was scheduled to fight Tony, but that was.
So for me, that fight. And a lot of people agree with you on that was his toughest fight. But I think it was just stylistically, Iaquinta is completely different from Tony. So and Khabib is very much, I'm not going to take this fight unless I have my full training camp. We do everything correctly, all this stuff, right? So I would imagine he game plans. I mean, it's easy to say that all his fights are the same, so he probably just game plans the same. But that's so there's layers to it. There's all these different things. So I think he was game planning for Tony. Takes Iaquinta, a very different opponent, on short notice. Iaquinta did a pretty good job of stuffing the takedowns, but even then, I think a lot of people were like, they saw that fight and they're like, oh, now there's holes in Khabib's game that we can see. And I'm not saying that you're saying this, but a lot of people were saying, oh, he just opened the eyes on some holes in Khabib's game, some paths to victory. But then I think it was just him fighting to the level of his perceived opponent. I think that's what it was, because someone like Gaethje stylistically is pretty similar to Al. Good defensive wrestling, standard striking, but hits hard and will just keep coming forward. It's similar to Iaquinta, and we see when Khabib is trying to make a statement, a completely different animal. I mean, it was a little bit slow right at the beginning of this fight, but once Khabib flipped the switch, it was like in your face constantly. You're going to keep running to get off the cage, and you could tell. I mean, Gaethje was gassing at the end of the first round. It was just the pressure and pace that he forces you to fight at when he's trying to steamroll you is just insane. I don't think he was trying to do that to Iaquinta. You know,
I think before the end of the first round, after the first takedown attempt that Gaethje was able to stuff, you see him lean back and take a deep breath and just and maybe it was like, okay, we got the first one out of the way. Like there was the first shot, there was the first takedown attempt, and I was able to stop it. But I don't know, it seemed like Gaethje started gassing way before the end of the first round.
I mean, he's forced to constantly either be escaping or engaging. There's no breaks. You're either escaping or you're engaging. And with Khabib, everybody talks about the pressure, but it's not just the pressure; it's the pace and the volume. He's throwing at you, so you can't just shell up and wait for your time. You have to throw back to try to earn some respect. So it's similar to like Nick and Nate Diaz, where they just fight at this high output that forces you to match it, and all of a sudden you're gone, and he's just coming forward you still. I mean, when he took him down in the second, and then took his back, and then mounted him, that transition was.
Oh my God, yeah.
God, that transition was so good. I saw that and I was like, fuck.
There's levels, man.
Yeah, there's just levels.
There's levels.
And that's why it's like, people are like, what's even left? Like, why is he retiring 29? He just needs one more, all this stuff. Everyone wants the 30-0 even, and I get it. But who's he going to fight? If GSP's not coming down to 155, and they're not going to give him Tony, why? Why do it?
And you know what he said? He said on the post-fight interview, he said, you know, they got Conor and they got Poirier for me. I choked both those guys out. It doesn't excite me, right? Like, what's left for him? So, again, very bummed out that he retired, because I feel like he still has so much left in the tank.
I mean, he can beat. There's not a lightweight in the division or in the UFC that can beat him. It's as simple as that.
But I have so much respect for him, and again, for me, his legacy was cemented for sure tonight. Not just because of his dominant performance against Justin Gaethje, which a lot of people consider to be the most violent man in the sport, but because of the reasons behind it, you know, and the fact that he is so much more than Khabib, the fighter.
Yeah.
And I remember during one of the fights where he's like, Dana, let's talk, when he's sitting, you know, and then he says, hey, let's get past this fight first, buddy. Yeah. Dana tells him, and Khabib responds with, win or lose, I know who I am. And he knows exactly who he is. He knows exactly the man that he wants to be, and family's so important to him. And he has so much conviction behind his beliefs, and he stood by him, and that's why I have so much respect. Yeah. And I'll remember Khabib for many years down the road.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be remembered as the greatest lightweight of all time. And you see the 29-0, and you see him retire, and it's like, for some fighters, you could see this as maybe like a bargaining chip, right? You know they want to do the 30-0. You know they want a super fight for their finale. They're going to retire to put the pressure on the UFC to give them whatever fight they want for that 30th fight. I just don't see that being the case with Khabib. You know, you see the 29-0 and you're like, oh, but that 30-0 is going to tempt him to come back, all this stuff. The guy is so disciplined that if he told his mom, I promise I'm not going to fight again without my father after this one, he's sticking to that. There's no 30-0 versus 29-0 is going to make him break that. It's just not going to happen. So other fighters, I would say, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. They'll be back again to try to get that 30-0. I just don't see it happening with him.
It's too important. Agree with you 100%, man. Well,
yeah.
That's all I got, Will.
Yeah.
You got any more reaction on this?
No, those are pretty much my initial thoughts. If anything like new develops, because they got the post-fight press conference now, I'm sure we'll find out more information and stuff on that. But we'll be recording probably tomorrow to do our regular episode that'll be posted on Monday, and then so if any more information comes to light, we'll talk about it then.
For sure, and if anybody listening to this also wants to kind of just chime in with their reactions also, you know, it'd be nice to see how the rest of the MMA fans feel about this unexpected retirement.
Yeah.
So if you guys listen to this, like, subscribe, let us know, and then give us a listen on this next episode. Thanks for listening to the reaction, everybody, of Story of the Fight. Appreciate it. All right, everybody, thanks for listening to the Story of the Fight. We really appreciate everybody's support. If you don't mind hitting the subscribe button, and when you do subscribe, make sure that you hit the notification button as well. That way you get notified whenever we upload anything new. Don't forget to hit the like button. It goes a long way for us. And leave some comments. We love interacting with everybody.
Yeah, and if you want to stay even more up to date, you can follow us at Story of the Fight on Instagram and Twitter. And you can email us at storyofthefight@gmail.com. Ask questions, give us feedback, critique us. We want to make this better, and input helps us do that.
Thanks for listening to Story of the Fight, everybody.